I also got a little chocolate thing, which I ate before I got here, but you know.
That's exactly why I went.
Okay, so it's 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Shall you move to? Okay.
I was gonna say if someone wants to test their microphone as remote, then that's a good thing to do too.
Yeah, before we start with the meeting, if you want to test your microphone, if you're in particular Michael Koster, please do so now.
Not yet on the list.
Okay. I thought it was. Okay, there we go.
You know what? Let's preempt.
Send him a telegram.
Yeah, I'll do that too. That's
Can you go to the first slide?
this one.
Just this one, so people know where they're heading.
He's not registered. He's gonna have to go through registration.
Okay, we might have an issue there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, use 3 minutes. Takes him 3 minutes to go through the data tracker and a fee waiver. And a fee waiver, remote fee waiver. Mhm.
Okay. Let's get going then. Hi everyone. Welcome to the ASDF working group meeting at IETF 121. Here at the front is Michael and Nicholas. And yeah, let's get going. Can you? Okay, first the note well. This is a short forum. You will be recorded, or you are recorded. Remember, be nice and professional, and please be aware of the IPR guidelines that apply. See the URL there. Next slide, please. And this is the longer form of the note well. You've probably seen it before this week, but if not, please take a moment to read it through. You'll find the slides on the meeting page. Next slide, please. And here is another update on the code of conduct. Please treat colleagues with respect, speak slowly, and limit the use of slang. Dispute ideas by using reasoned argument. Use best engineering judgment, find the best solution for the whole internet, and please contribute to the ongoing work of the group and to the IETF. Next slide, please. This is the agenda for today. We sent an update the day before yesterday, I think. We have passed through the note well. We have the logistics for the meeting. You can see there the Meet Echo link, which probably you've clicked on already. And of course, remember to register for this meeting. You also see the links there to the notes. Do we have a note taker?
I will do note taking.
Okay. Michael's doing note taking. The link there is the hashtag, so please go in, and if you say something that you want to make sure it's correct, please make sure it's correctly represented. We will start with a working group status update for a couple of minutes and a bit of discussion of that if needed. We will then go through the two main topics of this meeting, which is the first discussion on the SDF non-affordance discussion, This is very much related to the SDF for digital twins draft and some other ideas that has been discussed in the group here previously this week. So hopefully we can find a way forward on that. We are also, after that, we haven't put a time limit on it, but we have pretty good time today, so I don't think we need to have that. Then we have a section on NIPC, where we will have an update from the hackathon, discuss or present the new Series 3 draft, and also have some discussion and way forward on that. After that, we will discuss the future meeting plans, what we will do next, basically. Some design team meetings, interims, and plans for IETF in Bangkok. And then any other business. Any other business people want to add to the agenda right now? If not, then we had the idea that after the meeting is over, the formal meeting is over, if we have any spare time, because this meeting is actually, we requested 1 hour, but we got 2 hours. So we have more time. So we can spend some time on some design work after the normal meeting is over. So that's a proposal. There was a proposal yesterday to discuss some NIPC things. Yeah, the manifest stuff. Good. Any other comments on that? No. Now I have a hard time tracking everything. It's sitting really weird. Okay. Yes, please. Okay, so first a status update. We were chartered in October 2020, so it's actually 4 years from now, 4 years ago. And progress so far is that we've almost managed to finish our first RFC on ASDF. It has seen AD review and it's in Karsten's capable hands to finish. After that, it will go to IETF last call and ISG reviews. And we would really like to have this done before Francesca steps down as AD, as not to lose time on new ADs picking up the work and so on. But that is having progress, even though Karsten is reporting that there's quite a bit of there is work, real work to be done, right? So we're not done yet, but we're getting there. Yep. Francesca.
Francesca, SAD, I might be wrong, but my recollection is that it has gotten to IETF last call and there is reviews and we're waiting for the authors to respond to the reviews and the feedback and all of that. So it was a while ago now, 3 months or so, but just want to make sure that that's on the record and that's correct.
Were we incorrect or?
Either way, we're waiting for a new document.
Absolutely. Yeah. Revised ID is what we're waiting for, but for process-wise, it has gotten any review, it has gotten IETF last call reviews, and now it was about answering those reviews.
There's no voting record, so I don't think it's got any discusses or that stuff.
Well, not yet. It
no,
needs to
hasn't gone to the telecon. That's all I'm saying. We haven't got the.
Oh yeah, no, it's not gone to the telechat. It's not in ISG evaluation, right. But I'm waiting for the answers to IETF last call reviews before moving it forward. It's just a little bit further ahead that the slide says.
Okay, so we've done last call, but we haven't done ISG. Yeah, that's okay. Thanks.
And a point of clarification: you did just recharter. So yes, you have chartered in 2020, but you actually rechartered what? Oh yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, we actually took away that bullet yesterday. So good. Yes, we rechartered recently. And thank you, Francesca, for that review. We were doing this from what we remembered, and that was apparently incorrect. Okay, good. We've also had the NIPC draft adopted by the working group, which is great. Work is progressing. And then, of course, we have the digital twin document that has not yet been adopted, but I think there's been these discussions sort of trying to break making sure that we can do that as soon as possible. We have discussed, Michael and I, some ideas for meeting plans. Basically, it's NIPC design meetings. We need. I think there is even if it's NIPC has progressed very far, there's a couple of sort of SDF alignment things we need to discuss. So taking such meetings in January and February next year, and also do an interim in a few months' time when would probably be a good idea. But I think we will talk more about this at the end of the after the other presentations. Right. Okay. No, we haven't a slide on that. Okay. With that, any other comments, questions, clarification stuff on the status? Can you go back to the agenda?
So we're starting with a non-affordance discussion.
Yeah.
Michael Koster is going through the registration process. I don't think he's got here yet. Oh, there he is. Wow.
I'm on.
You're on. So let me pull up your slides, okay?
Okay, good.
We wanted to do the non-affordance first so that
Yeah,
we would then
okay.
explain how the other piece would go in, and I think that's right. So I just,
That makes
the
sense.
slides are probably named.
Is that okay or? Yeah.
This is the right one.
So with me, yeah, that's fine. That makes sense. I was wondering about that anyway. Oh, so you want to
And
do
I
the
should be
other
able to
deck,
pass you
though?
slide control just a sec.
Oh wait, I thought you wanted to do the other deck first. You want to do this deck first?
Our plan was to do this deck first, but of course, I mean, the order here is not a strict thing, right? We can take it the.
No.
Which is which?
They're named almost the same.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's your slides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we have the?
Okay. So I can control this. Oh yeah, here we go. Great. Okay, so for a while I've been thinking we need to step back a little and take a top-down view of what we're doing to add digital twin support to SDF. The location stuff is a good start, but it's like one corner of the whole space that we need to look at, I think. So this presentation is kind of about some things I think we could look at. So it's not, most of this stuff is still in discussion. So let me, there we go. Okay, so I think we had not spent a lot of time working on use cases, at least lately, so I thought I'd write this down. The two things that I think are important for digital twin use case are non-affordance information and instance graphs. And so non-affordance information is basically things that don't have digital interfaces, like, you know, a motor or something that just has AC power going to it. But in a digital twin model, we model everything, you know, control sequences and equipment and rooms in a building and parking spaces in a parking lot. So we need these things that don't necessarily have digital affordances to be represented in the model. The other thing is that they need to be represented in a graph. That's just what everyone is doing, and basically the way digital twin models are consumed is using a graph of some kind. So we use RDF, we use graph databases like Neo4j, and we use GraphQL and those kinds of interfaces. So those are the two things I mainly wanted to look at. Okay, so affordances in
second.
yes.
Karsten, you want to take it now or?
You have a question? Sure. Yeah.
Carsten, want to ask a question?
Yeah, Cosmo, I just wanted to point out that in the sequence instance graph, there are two parts, instance and graph. I don't care about the graph because we already can do that. So I think we really need to focus on the instance part.
Mhm.
So what is the important part about an instance? Well, it describes a single thing, not a model number or something like that, but a single thing. So it has things like serial numbers and locations and other information. So in the class information, you would have something like, for all my items, I want to have an inventory number. In the instance, you have one inventory number. So there's a difference between instances and classes. And the graphs, of course, come in because we have data items in there that actually are links and put things together. And that's also the place where we probably need to discuss RDF compatibility. But the instance idea, the instance concept itself is independent of the graph concept.
Okay. Thank you, Carsten. Michael?
Yeah,
Well-
that's a very good point. And I am not spending a lot of time here in defining exactly what we mean by an instance, but or exactly what the SDF design patterns are for instances. And what I have done is essentially gone from JSON schema, like a type definition, to a constant definition for something. So I guess model number is a type integer. The model number of this thing is, 3357721, using a constant. But that's sort of one little corner of that design as well. But we need to think about how we're going to actually do that. And that is the bigger part of the work. But leaving that aside for now, SDF affordances are properties, events, and actions, and are things that are expected to have, when you read an SDF definition, you're expected to be able to go interact with the thing using these affordances. So they're a software interface to some kind of physical device. But the digital twin model, as I was saying earlier, that we model things that don't have affordances. We need to model everything in the whole plant, if you will, or the whole city or building. So we need to model the non-affordance aspects of things. So assets, if I just have something that I'm tracking as a financial asset, or as in the case of some of the building ontologies, an asset is any piece of equipment, anything that you track at all that has like an identifying number. Organizations, equipment, control graphs, the kinds of things that when you need a complete model, you need to be able to look at a room and figure out what equipment is in the room and what it does and all of that. So that's really what this part of it is. Okay, so we have this name, non-affordance info. I made up a name, declared properties, because I think that we can really use a lot of what we do with the property type. I think most of this is going to be defining properties that aren't affordances. And I think that if we had a different kind of property, like a static property or a declared property or an intrinsic property, or I don't know what we want to call it exactly, but I think it should be more or less like a type of property. We don't really have events and actions, but properties are the things that you can just read out of the thing description as has values that are built in, basically. And they could be at the object or thing level. I think that I don't think there's much disagreement on that. But I think we can reuse SDF data for the data models. So that's why I thought maybe declared property, because you could make reference to SDF data and of all the same semantic affordances. And there was some question about whether we needed a registry for keywords that identify these properties. And I think that's the next level of question for this is do we want to, how do we want to, where do we want to put these definitions so that everyone who wants to use SDF has access to the same data model for location is really the first thing that we need to do. But also, you know, for the color of something or for its physical dimensions or things like that that we want to. There may be a set of properties, meta properties, declared static properties, whatever, that we want to define that are common semantics for everybody. And Karsten's at the mic again.
Yes, I just wanted to point out a use case. So one thing we have a lot of, or maybe actually not a lot of, in the university is projectors. And a projector obviously is a thing. And it has a serial number and all that stuff. But what we really need for a projector is a system for taking it out and reserving it and giving it back. And that actually may call for some actions. And there may even be an event telling me, oh, the projector that you are using is no longer yours. It's no longer reserved for you. You have to give it back. So I would like to keep my mind open to interactions that we have that are not affordances of the actual thing, but maybe affordances of some other system that somehow is related and it is managing the system or maintaining some information about the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's also a very good point, that we have references to things. Time series databases is, I guess, maybe another example for things that you don't actually interact with the thing itself. So there's sort of a fuzzy boundary of maybe things that are interactable and not exactly in the TD and not on the thing either. So maybe there's a third category of things that are referenceable about the device but aren't really one or the other, and that might need to be specially handled. Okay, thank you, Karsten. Yeah, there may be events and actions then also, if that were the case. Okay, so here's an example. Basically, it's just a little bit of SDF. I just say that there's a water pump that's a thing. It has a pump template, which is, I guess, getting into the class instance. We use SDF ref to invoke a template. It can have type definitions, but then when I go to declare about an individual, then I can say that one of the things that are defined in the template, which is housing color, which is a declared property, or whatever we want to call those, that it references the data model for color, and it says that the color is red. So basically, we've done two class references here, one to the pump template and one to the color, and we have defined an individual pump using the template, and we've defined its color as being red. Then it may have some properties, events, actions, like what run mode it's in and things like that. Okay, I guess people are just joining. Welcome. So, you know, just a little concrete example of how this could look when I'm using declared properties on a thing, or non-affordance. You know, you could just say non-affordance info, but I think, you know, defining them as properties might be a useful constraint. So what else? Okay, so instance graphs. This is the thing that Karsten mentioned earlier, is the one thing is instance and the other thing is graph. And really the graph may not be that difficult because we have relations and we have links and we have plenty of patterns for linking nodes together in an SDF graph. So not quite as worried about that. I think there's a use case for transforming SDF models to and from RDF and property graphs. So I should be able to have a thing that loads an SDF model into Neo4j and makes the right labels and everything based on what my relations are in the SDF graph. It needs to have both SDF relation and hyperlinks though, and maybe hyperlinks are sufficient as we've defined them. So I think we need to run some examples. And I think that what I'm wanted to kind of propose is that we don't really have a constraint language like Shackle or Shax or something like that, like they have in RDF, that's kind of uses the language to impose specific constraints. We have more of a defined by example, like a more of an owl-like pattern. But there's this concept called T-box and A-box, terminology box and assertion box. And T-box is the class definition where you talk about what all of these things should have and how they should all look in common. And then the assertion box is how you differentiate them and create individuals. So they use the same, the interesting thing is they use the same relationships in the terminology definition and in the assertion. That the relationship is seen for the first time in the T-box and it's defined, and then in the A-box it's used in given values. So I think that's close to what we need to do with SDF, but I'm not sure it's exactly the right exact model. But what we also have is incremental refinement. So it isn't just one class and then you make instances of that class. You have subclassing that that are successive or incremental refinement. So I can have an object that has 4 properties and 2 or 3 of them might be defined as constants for all objects of that type. Some might be defined as types. The next refinement might define a subclass and might nail down the value of some more of the properties, but still leave some things undefined for an instance. So from my point of view, by the time one way of having an instance in SDF is a singleton subclass. So you just keep subclassing until you have everything defined, and then you have an instance. But I've also experimented with making instances in JSON and plain JSON and other kinds of, an instance can be a thing that I've extracted a JSON schema from SDF and then make instances that conform to the schema. So that's another possible route to SDF instances. But I think it's very much an open question in terms of the, the full design pattern that we want to specify. So that's probably going to be one of the bigger pieces of work that we have going forward is getting consensus on how we create instances in SDF. So the last,
Michael?
thing I want, yes.
Michael, sorry, we
Yes.
have Matthew in the queue.
Oh,
Matthew,
okay.
quick question.
Okay, great.
Hey, Michael, long time no talk.
Hey, wow. Hey, Matt.
Hey, I'm kind of hung up on, I look at object and thing as interchangeable terms if we look at things like this in a polymorphic way.
Yeah.
I'm struggling to understand when you said there's a object versus thing level. Could you further clarify what you mean by that? Because I see them as the same things. They're objects that may have sub-objects in a polymorphic way.
So I believe that the main difference is that an object cannot contain another object. That's really the only thing that we've specified as a constraint on object, and thing can contain other things. During the development of SDF, we had many conversations about whether there should be one base class for just objects or things, pick one, or whether we should keep both. And I think the simplicity of having objects not be able to contain other objects was important to mapping a lot of existing SDOs work, existing standards. That a lot of the people who wanted to map their standard wanted to depend on an object never containing another object, but others needed classes that are a way for a thing to contain another thing or to contain object. So I think that's where we are, but I see Karsten at the mic, so please
I have
correct
a
me.
follow-up. I'll wait for Karsten. I have a follow-up.
Yeah. Okay.
I see the SDF object mostly as a historical artifact. You don't need it because an SDF thing can do everything that an SDF object can do. But in some cases, it's maybe nice to say that this is atomic. This is no longer substructured in that dimension. So we kept it in, but really, I think SDF object should be de-emphasized, and we should be talking about SDF thing most of the time. People don't agree on that.
Michael, can you increase in speed a little, because
Oh, I'm done. There's one more slide, but Matt said he had a follow-up.
Yeah, so whether we call it a thing or an object, how are instances handled when we talking about graphs and other ways of looking at the data coming from SDF? Has that been addressed yet? Because I know I asked this question a couple of IETFs ago, but I don't know. I haven't kept up since then.
I think if I understood your question, I think that that's the core of what we need to do is nail that down. Like it can be as far as an instance in SDF format, to me, the only thing I've been able to create that makes sense is a singleton subclass where everything is defined as constants and everything is resolved. If you read the stuff about SDF processing, if everything is resolved and everything is defined like you need a URI maybe, or protocol binding or something like that. But that's really what we call an instance, is when everything has been resolved. But what we don't have is format examples, and here's a JSON, here's an instance of this class, here's a class, here's an instance, and a real clear definition of how that happens. I think I understood your question. That's what you were asking about.
Yeah, the simple example is, all right, if we're going to call it a thing, that thing is a refrigerator. It's got a freezer temperature sensor and it's got a refrigerator sensor. They're both temperature sensors. Are we just going to like be verbose about what we call each of those sensors, or are we going to allow?
No, we're going to allow the refrigerator thing to have a freezer thing, and the refrigerator product, or we even had a thing called SDF product at one point. The refrigerator thing that you have as an overall thing can have two sub things, one being a refrigerator, one being a freezer, and the temperature sensor for the refrigerator would be found on the path to the refrigerator compartment, and the temperature sensor for the freezer would be found on the path to the freezer compartment. So we use the submodel and the path to distinguish those and create unique individual for both of those, or create a unique path. I'm being redundant again. So that would be the thing, rather than having to name it, rather than to use a haystack type, tagging system and having to, or even in RDF, you're forced to do this a lot because RDF doesn't have the same kind of notion of path. Just to name things to differentiate them, and we don't really depend on that at all. And I think that's one of the big features of SDF that makes it, for me, a lot easier to work with.
Okay, it sounds like you got examples coming, so I'll stay tuned. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, examples. I think examples is the key here. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, so I just wanted to summarize that I think what we need to do here for the high-level structure is we need to define digital support as digital twin support as an overarching sort of sub work stream for SDF. The non-affordance information, again, and then is part of digital twin support, but not, not completely. So we'll need vocabulary terms. We need something to basically design that. We need linking. We need the class versus instance delineation, and we may need to do some other things for digital twin support. So I just wanted to sort of set the overall context that the location draft I think ended up being titled either digital twin or non-affordance information, but it's not comprehensive in either of those topics. So the location draft needs to talk about location data models, and we need to have some other more overarching thing that sort of deals with digital twin support and non-affordance information in general. And that was really my last point. So I think was somebody's at the mic. Is that Ari or Nicholas? I can't see.
Ari, go ahead.
Ari Keränen. Yeah, I wanted to make a quick note on the instance part. So I guess we have a few different patterns here. Like one is the singleton pattern that you discussed, but then on the NIPC context, we also discussed on that. And basically, one way to make an instance, you have a endpoint specific ID and a class, and that seems to be getting you quite far. So I guess we have a couple of different models, but essentially what we need to do a bit more work on these and see what are those good reusable patterns. And another one was that I think I missed your question, Matt, but maybe we can take that offline. So I did really manage to capture it for the notes. So if you want to write it down in the chat, I'll make sure it's in the notes correctly, or you can edit in the notes directly too. Thanks.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
no more questions. I guess that does it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for this presentation and the content. I agree. I mean, this is a complicated, complex space. I think we shouldn't try to overreach and solve too many problems at the same time. But absolutely, I think the structure there is reasonable. So, but let's have some additional discussions. Let's first take your draft, Yoon.
Does this work? Does this clicker work?
That's a very good question. Let's see if it works.
Does it work? No, probably have to. No. Okay, just tell us. I don't know. We didn't figure out what we had to plug in. Yeah, I just don't know which one that is. This? That's a network. That's a network. Oh, it's inside the clicker? No, it's in the back. There's something in here.
IET.
Thank you.
There normally is a piece of tape.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the complexity.
No, okay. Just tell me what you want.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So please.
No, it doesn't work. Oh, the pointer works, but no one can see the pointer.
Now it seems to have advanced.
No, I did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Hyunjung Lee from HE.
Get closer to the microphone.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining. My name is Hyunjung Lee from HE in Korea. Today, I'd like to present my paper, my draft, the title, the extended information of semantic definition format for digital twin. This is the part of our ongoing work within the ASDF working group.
So I have to tell me when you want to advance. That won't work.
Oh, there you go.
It doesn't work.
It works.
I did it.
Oh, really?
I was watching.
Thank you. This is the status of digital SDF for digital twin. Last year in Prague, we introduced the SDF extensions for digital twin, and then we have developed the draft by adding the examples of both location in version 1 and SDF location to SDF model in version 2 and requirements for digital twin in version 3. Today, we are presenting our draft by adding the basic architecture of digital twin with SDF objects, affordance and non-affordance objects.
Oh, it didn't work. All right. This time.
Let's start with what SDF for digital twin is. It's a framework that defines SDF things, both affordance and non-affordance things, and their interactions in a digital twin environment. Our first agent is the location elements. which is crucial element to represent the spatial data accurately. The purpose of the revision includes three things. First one is address gaps to extend SDF capabilities. The second one is enhance usability with more detailed guidance. And third one is improve integration with external ontologies and frameworks. The main changes in this version is by adding the basic architecture and common qualities. The basic architecture is based on the ISO 23247 Part 2, which defines the reference architecture for digital twin framework for manufacturing. And the architecture consists of two layers, the physical layer and the digital twin layer. And the second one is we added the common qualities in table 1, which is from the ASDF main document. This is the basic architecture of digital twin. The architecture is from the ISO document. And in the physical layer, we have SDF objects, including the affordance objects and non-affordance objects. These objects can be digitally represented in the digital twin sublayer. And using the three kinds of functions in the digital twin sublayers, and the device communication sublayer provides the functions for data collection and object control. And the application sublayer provides the functions for humans, HMIs, applications, pure digital twins, and so on.
Oh, I did it wrong. Okay. I can't take
Next
notes
page.
if I'm doing this right.
Okay, thank you. This is the basic architecture of digital twin. In the physical layer, we have affordance objects such as sensor devices and non-affordance objects such as documents. In the digital twin layer, we have three sub-layers. The first layer is device communication layer, which provides the functions for data collection and object control. The digital twin sub-layer provides the functions for digital representation and synchronization. And the application sublayer provide the interfaces for users and data access. This is the conclusion. We already have developed this draft by adding the requirements for SDF model and reference architecture for digital twin in this version 4. And we are planning to develop this draft to add more information to represent on object as a digital twin and protocol and data formats if needed. That's all. And thank you for joining. And yesterday, I and Ari discussed with the draft, and the next two slides will be presented by Ari. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Quick question. I just push the button here.
That's okay.
Okay. So this is Elliot, just for the record. Which devices have you modeled this on thus far for the digital twin? Do you have? I presume you have a lab and you're modeling some devices.
You mean some devices, things like that?
Yeah.
Actually, we are just developing standard, not device. But when I developed the ISO 23247 document, the Boeing company using the ISO document to develop their airplane.
Okay.
So actually the
I just want to point out that an airplane will not fit in the hackathon. But the hackathon might.
We'll just bring the door.
I was going to say the hackathon might fit in the airplane, but I was thinking maybe for the next hackathon or something, we like if we actually combine the works a little bit, so that if we can do a digital twin model, and start, start actually knitting this stuff together through NIPC and through other things, it would be sort of fun. And we have a couple of devices that maybe we could model rather simply for that purpose.
Explosive door bolts on a Boeing door.
No, I was thinking about like a Corsano or something like that, where it's like a pulse oximeter. It's a very simple device to model.
I think all kinds of devices can be modeled by digital twin, and the very important thing is the functionalities and properties you are interested in. So I think that what is digital twin? What is digital twinning is the digital. Some devices can be digital twin. The important thing is that what component you are interested in, the size, color, the functions, and so on, the price, and so on. The important thing is your interest for digital twinning.
Okay.
Thank you.
You can do that with the clicker that we've established it works. Wow.
Alrighty. So anyway, I have only two slides by Arkeran and Eriksson. As I just mentioned, yeah, we had a chat yesterday on like how the good way forward with the digital twin work, and like we discussed in depth after the previous interim meeting that we're gonna need at this what we then call the non-affordance information construct to have a good location for the location information. And this is basically the proposal that I wrote after the interim, just as a reminder of one way to construct this. Michael Koster showed another way. I mean, very similar to this, slightly different naming. But the key idea would be that this is a just normal SDF object called hat detector. It has one SDF property, is the hat on. But then everything else under this SDF non-affordance information would be this new extension. And the the non-affordance information, it's on purpose named like that it won't be the final name. So we need a better name for it. But here the idea would be that you would register, basically have an INR registry of kinds of information you would put there, and location would be one example. And then under location, you would have potentially different ways to express location information. Here you see three different ways. One is this GPS coordinates, one is postal address, and one is this what three words. Just to show you that like there are actually a lot of different ways to express location information. And also one point that I already wrote in the email to the list is that I think like we're gonna need to look for established ways to express this location information. Coordinates is a good example, but also for the others, like look for the right standards. And I think like for the digital twin work, you're already looking in some of those. So referring to external organizations defining this information, then reusing it here probably makes sense.
Isn't there like a SenML or something that does that?
SenML has actually on a subset of what the sensor information, good ontology, but for let's say location information, it doesn't have. So, but I know there's a bunch of organizations have done a lot of work there. So using those.
Carsten, moment. This is a weird example because the SDF property you have there is class information. It tells you can ask any device of this kind for whether hat is on or not. What you have on the left side is instance information. It doesn't describe how the information looks like. It just gives the information.
Yes, it's a bit contrived example. So
yeah, I'm not sure that we actually want to have representations that combine these two. Maybe that's a good idea. I don't know. But I think we definitely need to have, if we want to combine them, we have to have a good distinction between the instance stuff and the class stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is missing a lot of the instance specific thinking. This is more on the level, like if you would take the examples in the current draft and you would structure them slightly differently under this SDF affordance, how would it potentially look like? But yet the whole instant discussion is missing from this one. That's true. And then the other discussion that we had yesterday, like how would it make sense to structure the work and the drafts going forward? So one potential way here would be that have an informative document. It's basically explaining how you use SDF to describe digital twins. That's something that we already actually identified earlier, that like we have pretty good spec, but like there's a lot of information is how you're supposed to use the spec to do things. And somehow maybe this kind of document that tells you way, okay, in this kind of case, doing digital twins, here's how we use SDF might be a very useful contribution in that direction. It could be serving both purposes here. And here, for example, the text that is in the current digital twin drafts could be very well go directly. And also, as was mentioned in the previous presentation, there's this ISO standard on digital twin. So also like how do things map together, and also how the protocol mapping potentially to a real system that is that this digital twin is describing could be happening. That's potentially also could be in this document. But then we do need a normative document, basically explaining how do you include this non-affordance information in SDF. And yeah, it could be defined in this what was now called SDF non-affordance block, or what was called the property block in Michael Koster's presentation. And then perhaps one more document, or could be together with the other one, for this location information. So this would be now specific piece of information using this generic non-affordance capability. And there we could then, define and register these qualities and substructures that, for example, for location. And yeah, pretty much starting with idea would be to start with the location information there that we have now, good examples, but probably would want to already early on explore what are the potential other things that we have a generic enough mechanism to support those. And yeah, this could be also part of the second draft, but that's kind of what I would reason would make sense to have for documents that we just adopt as working group documents. Because basically, I think the current digital twin document kind of mixes a bit of this and it's missing a capability. So that's why it would be challenged to adopt it as such. But if we have these capabilities, for example, then we could have a good set for working group to work on.
Okay, thank you, Ari. You're done?
See Michael Koster.
Oh, yeah, Michael, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have two points. One is it's, I think, again, the reason I called my proposal a property is because I think there's a fundamental difference in a couple of approaches. This non-affordance block is a block in SDF. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a property definition or something like that anyway, but whether it's a new kind of block or whether it's a type of property that uses SDF data, for example, that in the example, the additional annotation could be added to the class definition just by having an SDF data definition. So even if we had a registry, we'd probably want to use SDF data to define the data models, or we could use some other language, but since we're SDF, why not have an SDF data block that people can plug into their models? That's part of what gets registered for these common affordances. Let's see, and the other point I had was that, well, actually that was both points. That there's a difference between, defining a new type of block and defining a new type of property. That's a non-affordance property, and that SDF data could be used as the data model language for the way these are defined. It's not different from what we already define as an affordance type property. Mm-hmm. So that would be both my points. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Makes sense to kind of explore like what are the pros and cons. I think like probably a lot of the location information, it's roughly a couple of fields everyone can agree on kind of easily, but you're right, especially when it comes to more complex things, or maybe even for simple things, there's value for describing them with SDF data, because then you can give semantics for specific qualities there. So
and I think it might not be a good idea to combine these, but I know we do that a lot. That was my second point, that combining the location specification with the non-affordance normative draft. I mean, very often we have a thing that's general, and then we include a couple of specific, items in that same draft. So I wouldn't really object to it, but I think it might be cleaner to have separate drafts for these two.
Yeah, and of course they can start one way or the other, and then we see towards the process what makes sense. But I think the key thing would be that we need this top level structure, whatever named, whatever structure, and there we plug in the specific location. I guess we have a good agreement on that way going forward. Good.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we should move on. I mean, just a final comment on this. I think it's good work going forward. I also worry a bit that we should not try to make things too complicated. So, and not too many sort of special things either, right? But introducing something like non-affordance information is probably a good idea. Okay, with that, I think we are actually not running out of time, but we are taking some time here. So, but thanks a lot for the presentations. Let's continue now to something completely different. Let's go to NIPC and Bart.
Hackathon report first.
Yes, the hackathon. I mean, yes, according to the agenda.
All right, I'm gonna stand on the pink cross here. Hello, my name is Bart Brinkman. I'm from Cisco, and we're gonna start with our SDF and NIPC hackathon report. So the ASDF hackathon team worked on a few problems for. Oh, I can actually do this myself.
Yeah.
Okay. For 2 days. No, I can't.
Sorry.
Should I go a little higher?
No, that was my clicking in the wrong thing. Try now.
Elliot, you were saying something?
Is this better? Yeah.
Okay.
All right. First and foremost, thank you to the ASDF hackathon team. There were 9 of us, and we actually had a few remote participants as well. And thank you to Karsten as well for providing the gadgets that actually made it efficient for us to work with those remote people. So we now know how to do this. So we can, Karsten can share on the mailing list actually what we have to buy for future hackathons. The plan here was to work on 2 different classes of problems. The first one was looking at how we can convert models between ecosystems. So, an SDF model to Matter. And Nicholas Meyer actually built that converter. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And then also using SDF in networking environments. And then this is how SDF integrates with NIPC and also SCIM. ASDF describes how things interact. SCIM is actually provides device onboarding information for a specific instance of a thing. And then NIPC is an application gateway for non-IP protocols that allows you to talk to those things. So how do they interoperate? Obviously, a few drafts that are important here that were discussed. So the first one is Matter and SDF. And this was actually done Saturday morning before I arrived, so I hope I represent this all correctly. But a Matter converter was written by Nicholas Meyer of the University of Bremen. And the team or the hackathon team basically, verified that, it works and other people can actually deploy it as well. And it was also Dockerized, so that's easily deployable. Ongoing, so Nicholas has a kind of a physical deployment or a physical tests with a Matter and a non-Matter device, actually lightweight M2M to Matter interoperability through that SDF model that he created. So he has a physical setup, and he's going to be documenting that. If you want to know more about this work, it was actually featured this morning in the Thing to Thing research group. And so if maybe you saw it, or you can go listen to the recording there. Second topic, NIPC in SDF. And this was probably the bulk of the work, a day and a half or 2 half days. And we started by basically looking at, what are, kind of all the roles in, all the possible roles in this interaction. And we kind of defined, I would say, apart from the thing, obviously, kind of 3 potential roles, going from left to right. So on the left side, you've got the application, has the full application context. So also can fully interpret an SDF model and create an instance of such a thing. Then there's a potentially a middleware, so that may or may not be there. The middleware potentially has also that application context or a part of the application context, because it may not be fully aware of all of the properties of a device, and it may also have some connectivity context. And then there's the network gateway that just really knows how to talk to the devices on specific interfaces, but does not have that application context. And then there's kind of something in between, which we defined as the application gateway, and this is like a network gateway that has, you know, some application context. For example, it knows the properties that, you know, it can interact with on a thing. An application can either talk directly to a network gateway, or it can talk to an application gateway or application middleware. So those are kind of the roles that we see in this integration. So we started with the simplest deployment model, the network gateway model, and so this is an application talking to a network gateway, so nothing in between, and the network gateway has a connectivity context, and the application has an application context. So the application can, you know, basically interpret the SDF model, and then from that can generate instances, so which use SCIM for basically onboarding those instances on a network gateway. So SCIM basically allows you to give an instance an identity and specific instance-specific properties, and so basically used for onboarding that thing onto a network. And then NIPC, property and event operations, so that allows you to read or write a property or receive an event for one of those things. So so what we looked at, or what we looked at as far as integrating SDF with both KIM and NIPC, and I'll start with NIPC because that's probably the most straightforward one, is we looked at, you know, mechanisms to map NIPC properties and events into SDF properties and events, so that we could basically make a mapping of a NIPC property to an SDF property. So NIPC has this registration API that allows you to register a property or a specific property or an event, which kind of coincides with properties in SDF models. So we basically looked at, okay, can we, you know, kind of replace that API, that registration mechanism, with an SDF model? And then the other thing we looked at is when we onboard a device, like a specific instance of a device, you know, how do we, you know, tell it, you know, what the model for that device is? So basically, how do we integrate an SDF model in a SCIM object? So the first one, so mapping NIPC properties and events to SDF properties. So NIPC currently supports the registration API, and that registration API is basically a protocol mapping. So it will basically tell you the NIPC property of temperature on this BLE device translates to this service ID and this characteristic ID. And, you know, obviously there's example with other protocol specific mappings as well, but there's a BLE example here. So why do we do this? Because then, you know, if we want to do any operation on that property, we can basically call that property instead of that protocol mapping. The same thing goes for an event. So in this event here, this example event here, we have a heart rate property that defines as, you know, a pulse oximeter event on a specific instance of a device, which then again translates to a protocol mapping.
I just want to add a NIT.
A NIT.
Yeah, a NIT, which is as you're updating the NITC draft, examples like this are very helpful.
Yeah, but they are in there.
No, they're not. There's not enough of them. Believe me, I just went through this morning.
Oh, okay. Well,
with CoAP, actually, we tried to do CoAP over NIPC.
Okay.
For the BLE device.
All right. So the thought here is, you know, instead of doing individual registration with APIs on a per kind of property or event basis, that we directly map the SDF model into this, so that we do a single registration, and we basically say, hey, instead of register this property, we register this thing with all these properties and events. So in order to do that, we have to get that protocol mapping into SDF. So what we propose is basically a new NIPC quality with that NIPC protocol mapping for SDF properties and also for SDF events. Now, we talked about this application awareness of the NIPC gateway. So in principle, the NIPC gateway doesn't have to be able to interpret the entire model, but it just has to be able to pick out, oh, here's an SDF property or here's an SDF event, and here's how it maps to a NIPC quality. There's also sometimes a reason that there's an application context versus a network context, because in a lot of cases the network is kind of opaque to the application, and it should be. For example, if Elliot is in the hospital and somebody's measuring, or the hospital's measuring his heart rate, the network doesn't particularly have to know that this is Elliot's heart rate that we're measuring. So an application can also kind of send a subset of the SDF model to a NIPC gateway, and if properties carry confidential information, applications can modify the model to obfuscate property event names, so that confidentiality remains.
When we say obfuscate, I hope we're meaning encrypt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This is an example of what we think that could look like. So the property here, heart rate, and then there's a NIPC quality that we've added with exactly that protocol mapping that you saw in the registration API. Okay, so that object could be BLE object, or could be another technology that NIPC supports, or Zigbee or CoAP, for example.
One question about this, right?
Yeah.
So if those service IDs and characteristic IDs are now supposed to be encrypted, let's say, is it encrypted per device? Is it encrypted per class?
The service ID and the characteristic ID, those are UUIDs. The payload will be encrypted, right? So the UUIDs will not be encrypted, obviously, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to retrieve them.
Right, but so the question really is: are you blinding on just the value, or
No, you would just blind on the SDF property name. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this a class or an instance?
Class.
So
I think we have to work through that a
yeah,
little.
No, because it describes a property. The service ID and the characteristic ID is a property.
It's a property. It describes a specific affordance.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, we went through that in the hackathon.
Okay.
I know the answer to that one. And then basically the same for an SDF event. We add again an NIPC quality. And here, because there are different types of events in BLE as well, right? There's a type field in the protocol mapping, but the protocol mapping will always be specific to that protocol, and then NIPC can be extended with new protocol mappings, and we have to still decide how we do that, if that's actually needs a spec or if it needs just first come first serve.
Yeah. So this also came up when we looked at doing co-op over over NIPC, because you have like a GAT read, for instance, gets sent over the skim channel. I'm sorry, the RESTful channel, but the response gets sent over the telemetry channel, and that looks a little weird. So I think we have to look at that a little.
But that's not the case. It's
when you're doing co-op, it is.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So we had some really weird things that we were looking at this morning on this. So.
But it'd be good to look at that, actually.
Yeah. I have a little bit of I actually have a little slide I can put up if you want.
Okay. Maybe when we have time. Yeah.
It gets weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need another property, but whether you can reach your beer. Help, I've fallen and I can't reach my beer.
Yeah, customer, the orange coloring is nice because this could be part of a mapping file. So if that property actually is, or the whole SDF object is something you have in different kinds, you have a Bluetooth version of that and a Zigbee version of that. So the NIPC information could be in a mapping file that comes with a common model. So this is essentially just, I mean, it's another dimension, right? Whether you keep this information with the model, which means the model is specialized for BLE, or you put it into a mapping file.
Does it have to be either or?
Yeah, just maybe do a quick translation on things that we discussed in Hackathon. Yeah, it can be done exactly like that, but here we put it inline version because it is easier to use an API. You don't need to put two different constructs, you just put one. But yeah, this is exactly an example of how we actually do in the mapping files. You can have a separate file that then is referring to SDF definitions, and then you can keep the SDF file very generic. But then you can also, for cases like this, inline in the information there.
Well, I think if we're going to use this to actually, kind of register these properties on a NIPC gateway, I think the inline approach is, I think, more easier to use, actually.
Yes, but then of course we could think about like when you deliver those file system, there might be some processing step.
Correct, to the application.
Exactly, because maybe you want to pull in some of the very generic SDF files there, then in the gateway you add this mapping information, and together you inline them and then use the API.
Yeah.
No rocket science, but something that we could, for example, discuss. And maybe, I mean, probably would be outside of the normative part, because this would be, implementation dependent, but might be useful to discuss that, like, this is a way you can actually handle very conveniently in this case.
And it's a good library to build.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, and then the second thing, remember we talked about, so we first talked about how do we kind of model NIPC protocol mappings in SDF. And then this was kind of at the tail end, and then by the time also Elliot joined us, we looked at, okay, how do we map an SDF model to a version of a thing? So basically, if you look at, and that specifically means, for example, a SCIM object, but potentially also embedded into a MUD file. So here we were thinking then very specifically, okay, how do we know what model is specifically associated to what version of a device? And what we immediately think about is, when we think about version, is firmware version, software version, but obviously there are potentially other versions too. So we thought about, okay, how do we kind of, for a specific instance with a specific version, retrieve an appropriate SDF model based on that version, so we can, use it in that SCIM object, for example, or in the MUD file. And then so we came up with a manifest, which you can include in either SCIM or MUD, for example, that basically has a reference to the URL where the SDF file can be found. There's more work required here.
I'll just add, the manifest can be included in anything that can be associated with the affordance.
Yeah. So there's obviously more work to be done here because, as we said, as we just pointed out, firmware version is not the only version that we may have. Then there's the question around, if we include all these URLs here, how can we trust what we download and so forth? So there's definitely more work to be done here, but this is the beginning of a manifest that allows you to map an object or an SDF model into an object. All right, so once we did that, we started looking at our other deployment models and looking at, okay, with what we've done, is this enough, or do we need to do more to support these other deployment models as well? So if you look at the application to application gateway, so this is like a network gateway that is, somewhat application aware. For example, it deals with temperature sensors, and there's no confidentiality there at all. The application gateway can know these are temperature sensors. So in this case, the answer is yes, because what we just did for a network gateway is we took an SDF model and we made it a little simpler, and we obfuscated some attributes. Here we don't have to do it. We can just send the entire SDF model. So yes, this deployment model, it can be achieved with the work we did earlier. And then the last one is the application middleware component. Now, if you look at from an application middleware component, everything to the right side of the application middleware kind of is exactly the same as the application that we talked about before. So no change here. Then the only question is, how does an application tell an application middleware that, hey, I want to talk to a thing, and here's the SDF model for the thing? Well, we just tried to solve that by embedding the SDF model in a SCIM object, either directly or through MUD. So again, that same mechanism can be used for this. So with kind of solving these two issues, we're able to support all of the deployment models. All right, so that's, I think, the overview of what we did at the hackathon. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add, because I was not the only one there, obviously. But this is like the bulk of what we achieved there. All right. What we also realized is that there's a lot more we could do. So there's actually a lot of room for future hackathon projects, and we should definitely do this again. A few ideas as to build a dummy NIPC gateway, allowing developers to test against a few dummy devices. So think about potentially creating a few SDF models of devices and having them in a little library, or allowing you to import an SDF model, and so you wouldn't need like an actual full end-to-end network.
We actually have that code.
No, we don't have.
We have some of that code.
We don't have. No. Yeah, don't make promises.
Well, I'm pretty sure we have a dummy device.
We have, yeah, but we have some work to do to get there.
So also average PC, Raspberry Pi, etc., has half a dozen temperature sensors and fan sensors that are not really dummy, but are real actual things that you can pull out of I2C.
Yeah, but we
right. And they can have locations and sensors and even LEDs. Huh?
Yeah, that we have, but then it's a little more complicated because it's something you have to set up versus us having a server on the internet that you can just hit. And,
right, or a container that just has random fan speeds coming out of it or something, right?
Yeah. There's still quite a lot of work to do to update the tie-dye open source, because we keep updating the draft, and obviously we have to keep it up to date, especially the libraries, the sample app we have there, and then the actual NIPC gateway. And then what would be really cool is that we would actually have an SDF model generation tool with NIPC qualities, so that we could actually very easily kind of generate an SDF model for a BLE device, for a ZigBee device, for example. So make it really easy for applications to import those models. So there may be other ideas too, but we should definitely keep doing this work.
Yeah, and I think we need to I'll open some issues on this. I think we need to make a call as to whether or not to to continue to use the RESTful interface for NIPC controller, whether we shift to MQTT. We've discussed that. I think the co-op case gives me a great pause for how we're doing things right now. And I think we should just make sure that we like our direction and that it's general enough. But if we should think about that as well.
Okay, yeah, that's a larger discussion. Yeah.
It is a larger discussion.
Yeah.
It's something that hit me when we were going through this morning.
So maybe we, so maybe after we finish the slides, we can, maybe bring that to the table. All right. Okay. Discussion. Any discussion? And we're done. Yeah. Yeah.
For the tape, I'm just going to say there were 24 people in the Meet Echo. Some of them are Zulip users, which I think don't count, and 11 people, maybe there's 12 people in the room, because I don't think after you start leaving, then the numbers will break. So I just wanted to put that on the recording. We have some next meeting discussions.
No, we still have.
I know,
Oh.
I know. I just want to there. And we have 40 minutes left in the room to do things. So I just wanted to we might want to just jump ahead to close the discussion of the working group and come back to NIPC, and then you would have as much time as you like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have any? We have no other talk. We have no other slides, right? No.
Just the final NIPC ones.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm a bit confused here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry. Come back and would yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, there's a series 3 slides.
Yeah, non-hackathon.
Exactly. Now it's the
Draft
the draft
three.
work.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. They're also named almost the same. So.
Oh,
Yeah, we're doing a good job to fill the 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. We should request 4 hours.
Yeah. So NIPC.
6. Come on. Oh,
NIPC update. Okay, we've moved the repo. So it's in the ASDF working group. Please review and comment, create an issue. Thank you, Elliot, for the inaugural comment. Make a suggestion, create a PR, comment on the mailing list. All feedback is welcome. We still have the open source project. We are looking for contributors. So if somebody wants to come and contribute to the open source, you are very welcome. Obviously, we want to increase the community and move as fast as possible to make sure that the open source is definitely fully aligned with the draft. Changes in draft 3. I'm going to try to go through it pretty quickly. Previously NIPC was, kind of its own thing, but now it's an ASDF thing. So we basically did a lot of API changes to adopt to ASDF principles and nomenclature. And, after the hackathon, we're going to do a bunch more. But, we had lots of different operation categories. We replaced all of those with SDF actions. We updated subtopics to SDF events, introduced everything that was attributes became properties. We had different property types, which we all consolidated into a single property type. Due to that, we had a lot of extra APIs, which we removed. And we updated the entire schema. There's a new open API model. It's in the appendix. And we kind of updated the intro, the overview, added a new architecture section, which kind of references SDF. And then we changed the data interface from protobuf to CBOR as well. That was also done in the open source and properly tested. And then we added an error code section. So this is everything that was done, but there's a lot more work. So so this is what we're going to be doing over the next weeks and months. So we're going to be updating this registration API to what we've basically talked about in the hackathon. What we thought was actions is not actions. So we are updating that as well. We are going to see what we're going to do with APIs that have embedded protocol mapping. So those are the ones that, did not leverage registrations or SDF model. So we're going to still look at that. Like some things we have seem like observable properties and others events. So we're also kind of look at that. Ari made a great suggestion to leverage more in-path variables. We're doing that. So we're changing the path a little bit. There's some more redundant APIs that we need to remove. We're going to include a well-known URI definition. We have error codes now, but we're going to further describe actually what exactly happens. All of the error handling. We don't have an IANA consideration section yet, so we have to kind of define what will be IANA registered. We do have. We do know what we want to be IANA registered, but we don't yet know, what kind of checks and balances are required. Security considerations. We need a lot more examples. We have to prune the OpenAPI YAML file. It's really long. We should try to reduce it in size a little bit. And then, the open source implementation as well. And then there's definitely more work needed on this SDF model manifest as well. 2 open questions we have for the working group. Are we okay specifying this SDF NIPC quality in the NIPC draft, or do we need a special or a separate document for that because it's going to go into an SDF model? Is everybody good with doing it in the NIPC draft?
Karsten coming to the mic.
The SDF base document has IANA considerations, and all answers to all questions are in those IANA considerations.
Okay.
So I would expect that they have been written in such a way that a separate document can say, we register this particular quality name, and then it's ours.
Okay, good, perfect. And then, so the SDF model manifest for the thing, I guess that goes into a separate document. Do we also have consensus on that? Or?
I think the actual manifest, I would have no. It's up to you guys, but I wouldn't want to create too many documents because the manifest shouldn't be that lengthy.
But it also has nothing to do with NIPC.
Right. So I mean, it may need. All right. Maybe it needs to go into a separate document that, if it's modifying MUD or needs to MUD updates, I'd just keep it in the ASDF group here to do that. You don't need to ship this all over the IETF to do the work.
Okay. And then I have one more question, since we're talking now about things like co-op, for example. Is NIPC still a good name, or should we change it?
I don't care. I really don't.
Okay.
If other people have opinions, I would rather we focused on the technical work.
Okay.
The way that it's pronounced is very nice, though it doesn't always, I think, map easily for non-English speakers back to the letters. But I don't have a problem with those letters, right?
Okay. Let's keep the letters then.
Yeah, regarding the name, I already have got a couple of questions. Like, is this only for non-IP? My initial was like, yeah, but not necessarily always.
No, I mean, when I was looking at the matter example this morning in the T2GRG, it's like, yeah, we can use this too.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Not necessarily non-IP control.
So yeah, even though it's a bike shed, I mean, names matter. So and it's much easier to fix now than 1 year down the road.
Okay. All right. We'll think about it. All right. Now you can.
No. But before we go, sorry. One question actually. I mean, thank you for doing this work, and thank you for doing all the updates to align with the SDF. I think that's really good work.
Well, I think it also really improved the draft.
I mean, great to hear that. But I mean, was that process? we should say, did everything work as expected, or did you, find some problems that were not solvable with the current way that SDF is done?
Well, I think the kind of observable properties versus events is kind of still a little bit unclear. I think it doesn't really translate well to like protocols to have those two different things. So that I think will be hard. I think we're going to have to pick one, right? And so that I think is what I think is still a problem. As far as the process is concerned, I think the face-to-face really helped. So, like the hackathon, I think it really helps to get people together. So, the I would say remote or interim meetings, there's less feedback. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any? Yes,
Did
sorry.
you guys want to see that that one picture, by the way? That sort of leads us into this question of which transport we're actually using. Is it okay if
Sure.
Is it okay if I just plug in?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Just share from your thing. Yeah, it's even better.
Oh, hang on.
Plugging in will involve cables we're not supposed to touch.
Oh, right.
Exactly.
This will take a moment. No, I don't have it. Literally just did this morning.
Barry Kernan has to share the slide.
Okay.
I got to say that, having the clicker plugged in means you can't change windows. You can't go back and look at the agenda. You can't go and fix the notes. All these things. I don't know why it just doesn't plug into the Raspberry Pi over there. Huh? We have to fix that. So, huh? We have to ask them to to change the software so that any keyboard inputs on the Raspberry Pi always become slide controls. Yeah, yeah, and that would just simplify everyone's life. Yeah. Lorenzo. We have a Kevin Smith. Does everyone know who Kevin Smith is? He's like a director. Huh? I don't know who this Kevin Smith is, but there's a director who did Clerks and Dogma and all the sign Jay and Silent Bay. That's Kevin Smith. So
I don't have the option to share.
Oh.
No idea. So, all right, we'll save it for another time.
Oh yeah, you won't. You need the full client. You can't do that without the full client. Wow. I think I'll get and somewhere we should get a request, right?
I'm in the wrong room.
Oh well, that,
Okay.
someone's like, "Who's this Elliot guy? Why does he keep asking to share?"
That would have been embarrassing.
down to share the screen. Yeah. Yes. And I say yes.
Should we take the meeting location discussion now?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Here we go. I got to do it again. I'm sorry about this.
No problem. I mean, should we take the next meeting discussion now then, while you try to sort it out? And as soon as this works, okay. Well, no. Okay. No. But go to the agenda slide instead, because we have more meetings there. Page 6, yes. So we basically discussed 3 kinds of meetings here. We have a couple of more NIPC design meetings. Maybe we can do them like after this, if there's any minutes left. We were also talking about an ASDF interim sometime early next year. And we had a discussion of whether we should meet at IETF in Bangkok. Maybe start at the end, well, with the interim and in the next Bangkok meeting.
Will we be productive? Will we have enough people to be productive at Bangkok?
Will people go to Bangkok? Do people have money to go to Bangkok? No, but you have to get up at strange hours of the night. That's a sacrifice. I know. I mean, some of us, we shouldn't be complaining
Some
here.
of us never sleep anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, but it's more, should we request meeting time and have all the kind of create headaches for the people? I mean, it makes sense if people are likely to be there in person, right? If they're not intending to be there in person, there is no need to meet physically, i.e. it's better to find another time, not conflicting with the IETF meeting week, and maybe,
Will there be 35 people from South Korea?
Yeah, I don't know. Ari, please.
Yeah, I think Madrid might be higher chances, at least for me personally, and a few others I talked, so definitely there. But then I guess we need something in between, of course, and whether to do it during the IETF week or outside of the IETF week, I guess that's the key question.
I don't think we're saying Bangkok or interim. We're saying we're going to have an interim, virtual interim. Yeah. Do we also want to plan to meet at Bangkok? Okay. Probably we'll decide on another virtual interim in late April, May, or early June. And then, as you say, Madrid. I think I think the virtual interims are a given. It's the when. The question is it worth the effort to think? As Bart said, the hackathon time and FaceTime is valuable, but only if there's somebody else to interact with. Yes. Right? Yeah. So. Yeah.
I think for me, the key is like, if I'm the only one going, it doesn't make much sense to go. So I don't know if there's some kind of show of hands we could do, or some questions on.
Well, I think we should post it to the list. And I have no funding commitment to be there at this point, but that doesn't mean it won't change. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to take another look closer to the meeting time. But yeah, for me now it would be a bit.
Okay, thanks. With that inconclusive conclusion, let's then punt that question forward and just decide that we will have an interim. I suppose December is always super busy for everybody. Maybe in like mid-January or something when people are back. One alternative that we don't have here is, of course, that we have, like for the NIPC stuff. Obviously, we can organize a face-to-face design team meeting in somewhere convenient for interested people somewhere, right? And meet if people are able to fund that. I mean, people need. I mean, so that's also an opportunity here, a potential thing here.
FOSDEM side meeting even.
Yeah. Exactly, like FOSDEM side meeting or something like that. But that's also maybe something for later decision. But an interim in like late January to catch up where we are. We NIPC design meetings. Should we also do actually design meeting then on the digital twins? We need some progress too, because now we've opened up like this Pandora's box of different. And I mean, I thank you for your patience with pushing your draft forward. But so I would like to get some, or we would like to get some kind of action on that one. So we decided any of the options here, so we get somewhere. But maybe we should take a separate meeting just to that, to sort out the details with some, sharing the material beforehand and so on, sort of selecting one of the structures and building from that.
Do I get my math right? No, not quite. 5 p.m. California is 9 a.m. ish Korea, right? It's about that, right? Maybe I'm off by an hour. It's then the people in between that it's the middle of the night. So that's where we have the problem with planning virtual interims that way. California and far east turn out to be okay, but none of us live in the Pacific, so no one's in between. We're on the other side of the planet. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I think Bart, you are as well. Is that not? Oh, you're in Belgium now, right? You'll be at the FOSDEM. You'll just have it at your house. Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem, is that the people in the middle are it's a hard thing to arrange. And but if I don't sleep at night anyway, I don't care. But
yeah, but okay, so
Yeah, just wanted to point out that Bangkok is UTC +7. So it's almost the same time zone as Finland, and it's not that far away from. I think we are still already in summertime, in daylight savings time for the next
Bangkok,
meeting.
March.
stop changing clocks.
Yeah. But maybe the more important part for Bangkok is whether people are actually traveling or not. And I guess that's, with too many people have too vague kind of chances of traveling. But we can get back to that whenever the deadline is for requesting a meeting, or close to that, as we usually do. End of January. So yeah, so that's actually an extra reason to have another interim in February, in January, so we can just make a final decision on the Bangkok meeting time. But I agree. I mean, we need to find a slot that works for at least is sort of not super extremely inconvenient for anybody. And we will also propose dates for let's come up with some design team meeting for NIPC, not too far future, and also not too far future for a digital twin. I don't know if it's possible to do it before the end of the year, but it would be good, at least for digital twin, to decide on, have a decision on the structure, on the specification structure, so you know how to map your stuff, and we know what are the documents that need to be produced, if any. That will maybe be the thing. So, like early December. Yeah, like a month from now, early December. Yeah, that works. Yeah. Yeah. So this would not be like an interim. This would be more on the design team for the digital twin stuff. So we can have Okay. Okay. That didn't work either. Okay. Okay. Good that you told us now. Okay. Let's push that forward into January then as well, if that's okay. So like 2 weeks into January. Okay. But thank you for informing us. Yeah. Oh, actually, then we can actually let's not have a separate design team meeting for that, and just actually take it at the interim in January. So we spend a slot and prepare the material and so on for that. Okay. And then we schedule a design team meeting. Okay, good. Now we're done with the logistic stuff. Elliot,
Okay, so
please.
I'll send this along, and this is very short. I'll send this to for you for materials. It's just a PNG file. So this is just a normal. This is like a normal flow to get things going for like co-op over NIPC/BLE, which maybe it's an odd use case, but I did have somebody come up to me and say, I want to do this. And I said, well, how are you going to do this? So we said, okay, well, we're going to identify the device using the normal BLE mechanism that we have at the moment, maybe with a MAC address, maybe with no authentication, maybe with some authentication, whatever this case is going to be. He actually wants to try and get ACE co-op working over all of this. And the whole idea, in the end, what he'd really like to do is do a spontaneous registration. I've never seen it actually work, to be honest, but that's his end goal. In the meantime, he wants to be able to speak co-op. So step 1 and 2 are your typical SCIM requests, right? They happen over they happen over HTTP. Works good. Works great. Lasts long time. So now we're going to set up We're going to set up a topic so that we can hear the device, so that we know it's online. That's steps 3, 4, 5, and 6 in the existing draft. You don't have to worry about too many details about this, other than to notice that it's happening over NIPC over HTTP. Now, sometime later, step 7 happens. Advertisement. Hello. Right? So the device shows up. Okay. And so now that advertisement is going to get carried over MQTT to the endpoint application, right? Not HTTP, MQTT. Now, the owner now wants to, or the app now wants to set up a new notification subscription for co-op upstream in accordance with what this guy's been building out. So that is to say, if this will tunnel messages from the device to the app. So now we've set that up. Now you get a co-op request that shows up as an indication, okay, in BLE. Now that gets piped up to the application via MQTT. So you've received the co-op request to the application via MQTT. Great. Now you want to respond. So what do? Well, you have to actually send the response as a GAT write via HTTP. So this is this is a little kooky, and we should look into this use case just a bit more. Realistically, we might want to just trim all this and go to MQTT a little in a bit more detail, and actually maybe even we have these open API models. We can just as easily look at the async API models for this, because it's pretty much the same stuff, and then apply that over MQTT. That would be one approach.
So I did forget to mention that in my summary, but we wanted to actually the NIPC data interface to kind of not specify that it would run over just MQTT, but it could run over co-op or HTTP or other substrates as well.
Well, the key thing is then we have to define how you do the eventing in HTTP.
But
then
the other thing, what I don't understand here is that a BLE indication is there's no response request, there's no response expected. So the way you would, I think, do this.
No. What's happening here? Sorry, in step 11, the device decides it wants to do a co-op request outbound. right? So this is an outbound co-op request from the device. Its only communication method that it has available to it is an indication in order to do that initiation, right? This is something that is peculiar to at least BLE, right? So now so now you have essentially you're using an event mechanism to do a co-op request. It's what you can do, right? Because that's all there is. So now you do that, right? And now you have to get now this guy here is expecting a response. Okay, so how does the app send the response? That's the question. And the only way that we have at the moment is with an HTTP with a GAP write over HTTP. And that one. Maybe this is just a bizarre use case, and we don't have to solve for all use cases. But this is
Yeah, it seems like you'd want to pick like another protocol, like a Zigbee or a thread to do this.
You would think maybe so. By the time, but co-op over BLE is one that we might want to ask: is that something that's real? You know, this guy has the use case at hand, which is why he brought it to my attention.
Arkiran, so instead of MQTT, if you just do HTTP long poll, it would be much cleaner here.
I mean, maybe you could do an HTTP long poll, but and then you have to make sure that you're threading, and that would definitely be, you know, taking advantage. You would want to take advantage of HTTP2/HTTP3 for that purpose, right?
Yeah,
to make sure that you're using the same.
Or even
substrate.
WebSocket. I mean, but I guess the MQTT part is kind of why it gets weird, right?
Well, yeah, MQTT is extremely efficient for doing asymmetric communications, right? That's what it's pretty much designed for, right? That's its existence. And so we've always been thinking about, well, should we just move this stuff over from HTTP to MQTT? I think we had I'm not saying let's do anything right now. I'm just saying this is something we need to think about. This is this is like a real use case the guy brought to me for, you know, he's building it out. He won't tell me the devices that he's using because that's confidential to his to between him and his customer. But he said, how do I do this? And so we sat down and said, well, this seems to be what it looks like. And if it is, we should probably document this somehow in some draft. If it isn't, we should probably document what is.
No, but it's an interesting case. But I was wondering, like as I said, like the MQTT, HTTP stuff, it gets kind of hairy. But I think that would be simpler to do just one.
This really sounds like a agenda topic for virtual interim.
Okay.
For which, you know, Elliot's going to come back with some more detailed slides and, yeah,
So
with other options and stuff.
Why is 12 not an HTTP request?
Why is which one? Which step?
12. Why is that not an HTTP request?
Oh, because we don't assume that the application endpoint is running an HTTP server in the architecture. All it's running is an MQTT. It has an MQTT communication substrate for eventing. It doesn't have HTTP. It doesn't have an HTTP server. But that's why Ari was saying, well, maybe we do a long poll in HTTP instead. And we could. We just have to think about this. I'm not saying that everything's broken. I'm just saying this is a weird use case, and we might need to think about how we service it.
I guess the pattern that like some kind of request, some kind of response, there's weirdness on that side, and we want to still have uniform interface. I guess that might.
For small devices that speak BLE, most of the time, you would think they're not making requests, but would we be right? Right. This is based on.
It could be a co-op observe, couldn't it? Right. I mean, the result of a co-op observe that the device needs to initiate. That's what I understand. The device doesn't really have a way to initiate except by doing this indication.
If it needs a confirmation, if it needs any sort of response from a server, right, or from a control function, then you end up in this situation. So
that might be that's just not important, and we need to just understand why that would happen, or maybe that's the wrong model. Yeah, and as you say, you can't share the details of what in the world's going on.
I
but
don't know them.
But
it's his customer. But for sure that we just have to decide this question, right? And we hopefully I'll have more details on the mailing list.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, I think there's this draft. It's co-op over DAT, right? And yeah, right. So that's the mistake. Okay. Let me see now if I can stop sharing.
Apparently, okay, yeah.
Okay. No other funky things that showed up? Oh,
Yeah, I just thought you can see how many red bars are back and forth and, you know, but I put it in the notes as well. That's the constraint. Maybe we should just all go to Bangkok because that's just easier than actually figuring this out. But can you get up in the middle of the night and be in Bangkok?
No, because I'll be in Montreal. I'll be in Montreal at the Matter conference.
So Boston. So we just need a red thing in Boston, which is Montreal. Then you can stay up in the middle of the night and. Yeah, you don't need sleep.
okay.
Your old people don't sleep anymore, Elliot.
I know this.
Yeah.
We're done, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I guess we're done for today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Cookies.
Exactly. 4 minutes. We managed this time as well. We managed to consume all the available time. There is this what's this rule of sort of exactly.
Yeah. Work expands
Yeah.
fail.
So they got the cookie times wrong one day this week.